Harry's Wife, Part 100.31.2. Manchester. But enough about you. Let's hear about me. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You're all aware that Harry's Wife turned up in Manchester and delivered a speech at the One Young World conference. In the earlier video, I analysed the entry where she walked into the hall, Harry there with his handler, a miserable captor. But of course, the event was all about Harry's wife. She's far more important than anybody else who was there, whether that might be the former President of Ireland or Bob Geldof. Anybody else that was speaking there was merely the undercard to her main presence. And, as always, she's driven by her narcissism to acquire the prime aims, to control the audience and those that were watching where it was streamed, to draw fuel from their responses, to acquire appropriate character traits, and of course the residual benefit with regard to facade management and potential monetary payment for attendance. Her narcissism is not suspended. We're going to go through the video. Keep a chuck bucket to one hand. You may well need it. And I'm going to go through certain segments and then explain them to you so you understand more about what's happening as we analyse her, of course, through my expertise in relation to narcissism, because that's what you're witnessing in action. Let's bring on the first clip.
Please give a very warm One Young World welcome to the co-founder of Archwell, Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex.
Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. It is very nice to be back in the UK.
Well, Harry's wife is introduced. She receives some applause. It's hardly rapturous, but nevertheless, this amounts to positive fuel, demonstrating that the audience of mainly tertiary resources is under control, and, of course, there's no threat to that control, and she drinks in the fuel. It's all good for her. And, of course, her narcissism is revelling in the fact that, as the suitably attired Scarlet Woman, she comes to the podium ready to give everyone the benefit of her gargantuan mind and unlimited experiences about the human condition. Immediately, the rictus grin is deployed as a consequence of that false, all-encompassing smile, which is a response to the fuel that's being received and the attempt to continue to assert control over people through that facade. She commences, "It's very nice to be back in the United Kingdom." The first words out of her mouth are a lie. She doesn't like the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom and its populace are painted black. They're viewed as nasty, unpleasant, haters, racists, home of a racist media that drummed them out, that they had no choice but to flee across the sea. So already she kicks off with a porky pie. The real reason she's there is nothing to do with liking the United Kingdom. It's nothing to do with liking the people that she's talking to. It's there to draw fuel. Commensurate with that is the assertion of control, and of course, managing that facade as being seen as this colossus speaking machine, and of course to pick up valuable footage for Netflix. That is what drives her to be there. Nothing to do with liking the cause or the event or the United Kingdom.
It is very nice to be back with all of you at One Young World. As you'll likely hear many times this week, look, as we just heard, you'll hear all sorts of things. Some very heavy, some very uplifting, but the resounding spirit I believe you will hear is that you are the future.
We are then treated to our first dollop of industrial beige, where she explains that we'll hear lots of things. Well, what we will hear is a lot of word salad by the shitload. She kicks off, of course, with a benign assertion of control by condescendingly telling people, "You are the future." I'm mildly surprised that Harry's wife didn't commence by saying, "I believe that children are the future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. and that she would do so with all sincerity, not realising, of course, that she had character trait acquired some of Whitney Houston's lyrics. But already the tone is being set. The industrial beige descends. She has nothing inspirational to say, nothing meaningful. It's just that industrial beige, that magnolia, that neutral palette of dulldom that comes out of her mouth, whereas inside she's thinking, they're loving this. They're hanging on my every word. I am the bringer of wise words. The delusion has to be maintained to cause her to compel her to behave in the way that she does.
I would like to add to that you are also the present. You are the ones driving the positive and necessary change needed across the globe now in this very moment. And for that, I'm so grateful to be in your company today. It was several years ago in 2014 that I was first invited to be a counselor at One Young World. And in many ways at the time, I was probably a lot like each of you, young, ambitious, advocating for the things I deeply and profoundly believed in. And also looking around and wondering, how on earth did I get here? Have any of you today so far had that feeling, that pinch me moment where you just go, how am I here? Oh, it's a lot. And at that dinner, there were about 20 to 30 of us for the counselors. And there I was the girl from Suits. And I was surrounded by world leaders, humanitarians, prime ministers, and activists that I had such a deep and long-standing respect and admiration for.
We, of course, then get, in this very moment, one of her stock phrases. And for that, I'm so grateful to be here in your company today. False humility. And that's your lot. Audience, 1 minute 10, that's you spoken about. Now, it's the Harry's Wife show. Yes, they just get 1 minute and 10 seconds in relation to what she thinks about them, and then immediately launches into talking about herself, as we would expect, because she's so self-absorbed. And she brings up the past for the purpose of asserting control now and drawing fuel by referencing back in 2014 when she was first invited to be a counsellor. She attempts to portray herself as relatable. I was like you, ambitious, advocating for the things I deeply and profoundly believed in, which of course, that's what she thinks she was doing, but she wasn't. She was there seeking out the prime aims. And then she admits, she thought, how on earth did I get here? And then gives a slight laugh. Nobody laughs at this because it's not funny. Harry's wife doesn't have a sense of humour. We then get told about the fact that she attended a dinner with 20 or 30 other people. And of course we now are reminded of the fact that she was the girl from Suits, because we never knew that. We were never aware that she was in Suits because it never gets mentioned. Imagine that she continues to dine out on a programme that she hasn't been in for years. That shows she has nothing really to talk about once again. Industrial beige. She does at least get a laugh from that, with the supine audience, which of course provides her with some positive fuel. She goes on to explain that she's surrounded by world leaders, humanitarians, prime ministers, people that she had a deep and respectful admiration for. She has no respect for anybody. The only person that she admires is herself. And what was really going on when she was sat there, her unconscious narcissism would be going, goody gumdrops, look at all of these people that we can get character traits from. Fucking A. That's what was really going on.
And I was invited to pull up a seat at the table. I was so overwhelmed by this experience. I think I even saved my little paper place card that said my name on it. Just proof that I was there, and proof that I belonged. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure that I belonged. I was so nervous. Oh, I doubted myself, and I wondered, I wondered if I was good enough to even be there, if what I was doing in the world, albeit important and meaningful as far as I saw it, was it deserving to have a seat at this table? But One Young World saw in me what I wanted to see fully in myself. They saw in me, just as I see in you, the present and the future. And I reiterate that point because oftentimes we speak to young adults about the years ahead, about what you'll do, what you'll have to adopt to fix from previous generations, and also what legacy you will leave. But too often in that, we neglect the point that you're doing it now. You here in this present moment, this is where it's all beginning. The first year I joined the delegation in Dublin, I worked with a young woman from Eritrea, and she described how she had escaped her home country, fleeing with bullets fired above her head. I still remember it so well. I remember my shock, and I also remember her courage. My recognition of how much continues to go on each day with so many turning a blind eye, and yet despite all odds, she, like so many, still persevered. I followed up that trip, as David mentioned, to joining the delegation again in 2016 in Ottawa.
Well, are you managing to stay awake? I imagine that you're having to snort cocaine to get through this absolute snooze fest. First of all, it cuts away to Prince Harry, who simply looks bored, probably like everybody else listening to this dumping of utter banal dross. We then get the anecdote about her saving her place card. How fucking fascinating. There you are, on a platform in front of all of these people who've paid a not inconsiderate amount of money to turn up, and you continue to talk about yourself, self-absorption, bringing up the past. I had understood that she'd be there to talk about gender equality. So far, at over 2 minutes in, we haven't heard anything about that. Maybe it's coming later. We'll have to see. And she talks about proof that she was there, that she took this place card, and it was proof that she belonged. And she said that she was so nervous and that she was so worried that she was not good enough. She didn't in the fucking slightest worry about any of those things. Her narcissism told her that she belonged there, that this was her natural home. What's happening is, in this moment now, she's revising history with false humility to give the pretense of being nervous, to attempt to look relatable. It didn't happen, but the narcissism causes her to revisit those events to believe that that's just the case. She, of course, then explains that One Young World saw in her just what she would see in the people listening to her. Oh, what's this? Are we going to get some praise, some perhaps mind-bending revelation about what she's seen? No. It's the present and the future. We then get some bollocks about neglecting the point that you're doing it now, and that they're doing it now, in this moment. Yes, out it comes again, that phrase, in this moment. She then moves on to when she attended in Dublin, so she's continuing to talk about herself and triangulates the audience with the anecdote about the Eritrean lady. And there's the false compliments about talking about this lady's courage, and she bangs on about turning a blind eye. It is all utterly dull, and it's all about, this was me when I was there before, and I'm going to talk about myself again when I attended this conference. Wow, how fucking interesting. Then, guess what? She's going to talk again about herself, but this time when she attended in Ottawa. One can't fucking wait.
I'm lucky to receive a day off of filming specifically to take a quick flight from Toronto up to Ottawa and to be able to join this work again for One Young World. Being with some people that I admired most, including former President of Ireland, Mary Robinson, who you heard from earlier. I joined you in London in 2019, and by that point, it's fair to say, my life had changed rather significantly. I was now married, and I was now a mom. My worldview had expanded exponentially, seeing the global community through the eyes of my child. And I would ask, what is this world he would come to adopt? And what can we do? What can I do to make it better? I am thrilled that my husband is able to join me here this time. To be able to see and witness firsthand my respect for this organization, this incredible organization, and all that it provides as well as accomplishes. One Young World has been an integral part of my life for so many years before I met him. So to meet again here on UK soil with him by my side makes it all feel full circle. And just as a sidebar, earlier this afternoon, we sat down with a few of you delegates, and it was incredibly inspiring, the resounding themes that came up about representation, about inclusion, about access, and about trying to shift the global perspective for all of us as a global community to one of curiosity over criticism.
Keep taking the lines, keep jabbing the fork in your thigh to stay awake as you watch the Duchess of Ultra-Beigeness continue with this boring series of anecdotes all about herself. I understand that she managed to say I or me 54 times in the space of the, what was it, roughly 7-minute address or thereabouts. Anyway, we're then told the exciting news that she was very lucky to have a day off filming and that there she met the President of Ireland, Mary Robinson, who, of course, we'd all just heard from. Then on to London 2019 for another anecdote about, herself. Here we are. And now, of course, her life had changed. She was married and a mother. No fucking way. I'd not heard of that. I think, obviously, that news had been kept from me. I wasn't aware that she'd married a prince of the realm, nor that she'd become a mother. Fuck me, when did that happen? She then receives applause for that. Kind of tells you the mentality of the audience if they're applauding the fact that she's married and a mother. Now, you'll say they're just being nice, but the simple fact is, millions upon millions of people are married and are mothers and also fathers. Does that merit applause? Is it some kind of remarkable achievement? Is it something that's unique? Far from it. And many of you listening are both married and a parent. And whilst I appreciate, from the way that I've observed it, that that can be particularly hard work at times, you don't go around expecting accolades. But of course, this narcissist does. We then get treated to some bollocks about her worldview had expanded so that she saw the world through the eyes of her child, and she asked what could she do. Well, I suppose what she could do is keep flying off and leaving him behind, keeping him away, stopping him from seeing his extended family repeatedly, because that's a really pleasant thing to do. She could utilise him for merchandise. She could, of course, continue to behave in a way which causes her to be viewed as a particularly unpleasant person, which will ultimately wash down over her son. So, yeah, there's lots of things that she could do for him. And then, of course, back to talking about herself. And she explained that she's thrilled that her husband can join her this time. There's more cheering from the supine individuals who are probably being faced a la V for Vendetta, with a group of masked men pointing guns at them saying applaud. It then cuts to Harry. He does not look thrilled in the slightest. Indeed, it looks like his piles are playing up and he'd rather be somewhere else. He, of course, isn't delighting being there. Once upon his ardent enthusiasm for his wife seems to have ebbed, a consequence, of course, of the fact that he remains in a sustained devaluation. We then get to the fact that she wanks on about the fact that she is delighted that he can now witness firsthand her respect and admiration for this organisation. I bet you're fucking thrilled about that, aren't you, Harry? Being dragged along to listen to the Scarlet Woman talking beige. We get some crap about things having come full circle. Then we get treated to a sidebar, and that she explains she sat down with delegates and talked about inclusion, representation, access, and about trying to shift the global perspective of the global community to one of curiosity over criticism. Dose of word salad, utterly meaningless. What does that achieve? Where is there a plan? Where is the words of inspiration? She just regurgitates the bollocks that she spouted before. Utterly banal and so beige.
My husband has long advocated for important and necessary impact in the world, focusing a huge part of his life's work on the youth. So for both of us, bearing witness to the power that you hold in your hands and the unbridled enthusiasm and energy that you have to see things come to fruition, it is just an absolute privilege. I'm incredibly humbled to not just stand before each of you, but to stand beside you. We often hear people say the time is now, but I'm going to double down on that by saying your time is now. The important work can't wait for tomorrow. And this week, the world is watching as you cement your place in history by showcasing the good that you are doing today, in the present moment, as we embrace the moment of now to create a better tomorrow. And with that, it is my absolute honor and pleasure to declare this year's One Young World Summit officially open.
What? She's finished? Oh, good. Apologies there. Nodded off. Sent into a coma, really, listening to that. Fuck me. That was dull, wasn't it? We got some bollocks about Harry advocating about youth and then talking about unbridled enthusiasm and an energy. It's a privilege. She's incredibly humble to stand beside you. We often hear people say the time is now. Here we are again about the now. We're going to double down on that. Really, you've quintupled it down on the now. That's all you keep fucking going on about. And again, here she comes with your time is now. And cement your place in history. And in the present moment, as we embrace the moment of now to create a better tomorrow, it's abject word salad. And then eventually she declares the One World Conference officially open. And people clap. There's no threat to her control throughout the whole of this speech. The audience is supine, and she's applauded, and she receives lots of positive fuel from these tertiary sources. What do we learn from this? Nothing that we didn't already know. She is the most boring individual on the planet. That speech said nothing. You might as well have found a beige blancmange and placed it on the podium even, and that would have been more entertaining than listening to that. Well done, you can read from an auto cue or a teleprompter. Brilliant. Platitudes, meaningless. Empty words that she doesn't live by because her narcissism doesn't cause her to do so. Talking about herself. A stroll through the anecdotes of when she's been at the conferences before. Wow, how fucking inspiring. And then telling people it's in the now and you're of the now and you're in the present and it's the moment now in the moment of the present to cement the past to create the future or some kind of nonsense like that. I would struggle to say that I don't think I've ever heard anything so empty, vacuous, meaningless. It was like being told that it was akin to coming along and saying, I'm going to create everything with the flavour of lettuce or celery. Doesn't really have much of a taste to it. It's like suggesting that you're creating meals using the most insipid and barely perceptible of ingredients that you think, I'm really just eating air, aren't I? The mouth was moving, words were coming out, They were asserting control over the audience, very easy to do, because they'd either been paid to turn up or they paid a lot of shekels to sit there. But quite simply, that was bland in the extreme. And it just reinforces she doesn't have an original thought, and of course it always, always, always has to be about her. We can see an unhappy Harry still stuck in the sustained devaluation. We see the rictus grin as she drinks up all of that lovely fuel, and it just reinforces that, seriously, if you are an organisation that is thinking of hiring her as a speaker, you really need to submit to psychiatric evaluation. There are millions of people who are much more interesting than this woman. She is boring in the extreme. It was painful to watch and to listen to almost, because it was just utterly, utterly devoid of anything of meaning. But this is what she trades on, and it exemplifies that she is empty. Well done for making it this far. Show your appreciation for this video. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching. Hello? Hello? Is there anybody here? I'm gender equality. I was meant to be mentioned here? No? Everybody seems to have gone. How strange.